Hey, friends. Thanks for joining me for another episode of What's on Your Plate podcast. Today, we are asking some questions that challenge traditional ways of healing from the hard things in life. The concept that you have to feel it to heal it, the face it head on ways of thinking, are being discussed and questioned. What if it didn't have to feel so hard? What if you could overcome difficult experiences or situations differently? What if there was a more gentle and even faster way that allowed you to struggle less or perhaps not struggle at all? There are a lot of alternative ways of achieving inner peace, personal growth, and healing. My guest today is speaking on one that has helped her, and maybe it will help you too. Let's listen in.
Awesome.
And we'll roll from there. So,
Cool.
without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce Lisa Grove. She is a certified organic intelligence practitioner and loves helping others find their healing in an easier way. This is something that is going to be, I feel like, eye-opening for a lot of people today because most of us have heard the phrases, you need to feel it before you can heal it. You need to work through it, or look your trauma in the face type of things. And what you're going to share with us today and talk about is really something much more gentle, entirely different. And it's an approach that is new to me for sure. So I'm excited to hear you talk about that today, Lisa.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Organic intelligence it refers to the intelligence that your unconscious body and mind already have to
Mhm.
do healing, like healing a sprain, healing a cut, except there's much more healing that goes on within our bodies. And our unconscious also has a lot of automatic processing that happens when we're growing up to fit us in, when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, to get us through. And when those automatic things happen, some of those self-healing and self-ease unconscious things get traded out. And what organic intelligence does is helps the unconscious parts of our body and mind know that it's safe to let go of those trade-offs and roll back to before. And when that happens, there's a lot more self-healing, there's a lot more self-ease. Things just show up. Like when your muscles get stronger, you don't notice until you use them. With organic intelligence, you just do something that you didn't used to be able to do, and you go, oh my goodness, I just did that and it wasn't hard and I didn't think about it. It's because your unconscious system healed you from within. So I love it because it's absolutely no conscious effort required. It's like us talking.
When you say it like you just did, and when you describe it like that, it really makes a lot of sense. We know that our bodies are built to heal
Yeah,
themselves, right? We know that our body knows what to do to, like, for the most part, overcome an illness or heal from a broken bone or something like that. Our body does that without much intervention from us. But somehow we've disassociated that with mental health, and we think that there has to be all this interference on
right,
on the part of us or who's helping
right.
us, whether it's therapists or practitioners or any kind of people from a healing standpoint. But it sounds like, if I'm hearing you correctly, that we're just doing an amazing job at overcomplicating it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, I think part of what's been going on is the traditional medical model that we've adopted has created in us a mindset of if it's broken and it's not easily healing by itself, we need to intervene and do something. And
Mhm.
really, perhaps what we need to do is let go and help the unconscious parts of the body and mind recoup what they used to be able to do.
Okay. Well, I want to not get too far ahead of ourselves. I want
Sure.
to back us up a little bit because I feel like I want to put some context to what brought you to this place in your life. And you had certainly tried more common ways of
Yes.
healing prior
Oh,
to finding organic intelligence,
yes.
and your journey that brought you to the need for this type of healing. Tell us a little bit about just your backstory, Lisa, and
Sure.
the things that you found yourself struggling with and then not as a result of this modality.
Right. When I was 37, I began remembering, well, I began having flashbacks of terror and fear and panic. And I knew they were flashbacks, but I didn't have any idea what they were related to or what they meant or how that even worked. I didn't even know why I knew the word flashback. And things got so bad that I finally sought out a therapist, even though I'd been somehow raised to think therapists were only for people who were legitimately crazy. And I was like, I am not crazy, but I needed somebody. And I began just talking with the therapist. I mean, in those years, there wasn't organic intelligence yet, and there wasn't even, the internet was just starting. So it wasn't even possible to find out a lot of different modalities. And the memories just started coming back, and I was diagnosed with PTSD, and I would profoundly dissociate for days, which basically means that I would find myself in a fog without my normal abilities, not being able to think normally, not being able to process conversation normally. And for about 4 years, I felt like I was in a riptide in a fierce ocean coastline with fierce waves, just caught, tumbling between the universe that I knew before the memories came back, which seemed perfect. I thought it was perfect. And then I had all these other things going on, and it was like, where's the new universe that's got the old universe, the truth from that, and the new universe that I'm remembering? Because they're both true, but I grew up with just the one and everything else suppressed. And I think my system gave me that gift so that I could survive a long-term childhood sexual abuse. And I went through 20 years of weekly therapy. Painful, hard. Working on that stuff is re-traumatizing often. But that was the only way I knew to get through it. And I wanted to quit so many times. It was just too hard. But it was like, well, if I quit, I'm either stuck here or I'm going back to where I was. And it was, neither one of those was tolerable. So I kept going. And around the time that therapy started winding down and I started to feel like, okay, I'm healed enough that I'll be fine, I was bitten by a tick with Lyme. And that started off a whole series of different complex illnesses that lasted for 10 years. And in that period, the only people that I could ever find that knew what was going on were alternative doctors with alternative knowledge. The traditional medical docs would look at my tests and go, well, you're healthy, what's wrong? It must be in your head. But I couldn't think, I had no energy. And so that 10-year period, there was so much loss and so much inability, and nothing ever helped during the trauma therapy and during the complex illness journey. Nothing ever helped fast. Nothing was ever easy. Everything was always super hard. And when I was recovered enough, I began investigating. I want something that can help people faster, easier, without so much struggle. Because who would take 20 years out of their life and go to therapy? Because childhood sexual abuse is statistically very common, but it's not statistically very common for people to seek healing. So, and I wanted more people to be able to heal without so much struggle. And when I learned about organic intelligence, when I first started reading about it, something in me jumped and said, this is it. And I didn't even read very much. I just jumped right into getting a coach, getting a practitioner myself, and taking the year-long certification training program. Because I just had developed such a desire to help other people heal faster than I did. So that's kind of the short the long version of the short version.
Well, it's certainly helpful in giving us some context of what brought you to where you are now, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And, something that you said within all of that, that statistically it is uncommon for people who have been abused to seek out help, right?
right.
Uh, Oftentimes it is an unspoken trauma and it is dealt with privately or in solitude. And that I feel like there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of them is just people being very terrified of having to relive what they
Oh,
went
yeah,
through.
yeah,
So doing that in a traditional therapeutic setting of that, you have to feel it again, right? Or like
right.
face it again in order to
Oh,
heal it,
thank you.
right? Is
Yeah,
not something that people are eager to do.
right.
So, organic intelligence offers a much different approach. And one of the one of the quotes that I felt like was interesting to me from the founder of this modality,
Uh-huh.
Steve Hoskinson.
Yes.
He lays out that our problem is our focus on the problem and our addiction to the what's wrong attention.
Yes.
Do you want to expand on his
Sure.
thought and comments on that?
Sure. He calls this the what's wrong attention, and he calls it an addiction because our automatic unconscious systems adapt to easily do whatever we do a lot of because it's more efficient. And in our society, we're so prone to need to watch the news, to need to read the news, to need to listen to the news. And the news is typically more awful than good. It's like, I need to know what's wrong. I need to know what's wrong. I need to know what's wrong. And so our unconscious systems adapt themselves,
Mm-hmm.
focus on what's wrong instead of being calm and curious and looking for the resources. And our unconscious systems become addicted to what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a chemical addiction, it's a functional trade-off that our unconscious system is made to become more efficient with our need or desire or tendency to seek out the news, the bad news.
Mm-hmm.
And organic intelligence teaches, Steve Hoskinson teaches, that our original functional format is still there. The calm, curious, where are the resources? Not that there's never any attention to what's wrong, but that the focus is more on what's right when we're born. And what the practitioners trained to do is notice tiny little signs in the person's unconscious behavior, in their body language, in their facial expression, in their eyes, and subtly reinforce those places that are still operating in the old, calm, curious format. It's like reminding the unconscious, hey, remember this? It's okay to do more of that. And then what happens is the unconscious system of the person, the body and the brain, they start doing a little more and doing a little more and doing a little more. And partly what that means is there's more energy for the unconscious system to use because of a couple things. Stress takes more energy than calm. And also, our unconscious systems have a need to map us in the environment, to map the resources, to map what's good, where the food is, of course, to map what's wrong, but mostly it's mapping, how we fit into this environment and where's the food, where's the shelter. And so that need is always there, but when we ourselves become focused on what's wrong and our unconscious systems follow us, they don't get as much of what they're wanting, the unconscious system doesn't get as much as what it's wanting of that mapping us in the environment. So that adds stress at the unconscious level. So when those things shift, the unconscious level has much more energy and much less stress. So we start functioning better. Our self-healing system starts functioning better. We become more able to see what's good in our environment and start seeking the good and the healthy, pleasurable things rather than always focusing on the wrong. And that's basically it. It just, our system resets back to how it used to be because of being reminded a little bit, a little bit, a little bit.
What I hear you saying a lot is retraining our brains to focus on the good and look for the helpers, right? Not the problem causers, and look for the good and not focus on the bad, and really integrating that into our way of thinking in a way that we just automatically or unconsciously start to do that in
Right.
everyday life. Tell me a little bit, Lisa, about in doing that, how is it not the same or similar to somebody that just has like an avoidance tendency to like ignore something that's wrong?
Right. Well, actually, the way that you described that had a lot more conscious effort involved. Retraining our brain, focusing on the good, and organic intelligence is about helping the unconscious part build that in naturally. So we just start doing it without even being aware that we're doing it. So avoiding something might be happening because some part of the unconscious system is reminded of something in the past that was dangerous. And so it's like, has us avoiding that. We might think that we're consciously avoiding it, but if we try to change it and it's not easily changed, it's probably coming from the unconscious. And as the unconscious system begins to let go of when it learns, for instance, and this is simplifying things a lot, but when it learns that that old event is in the past and it's safe now to let go of that trade-off that we made to avoid that because it's not happening anymore and we have more resources, we're adult. When the unconscious system lets go of that old trade-off, then new pathways open up that weren't available because of that trade-off. And everything inside shifts, so all of a sudden we're not avoiding that thing anymore. But we didn't think about not avoiding it. We didn't even think, oh, I'd really like that to change. It just changed. Because our unconscious systems have as their goal our very best overall functioning. And they have such intimate knowledge of how we're structured and all of the trade-offs that have been made on our behalf that when they're given new resources or new pathways, the unconscious parts choose what's going to give us the best overall function given that new set of stuff.
I like how you described all of that, and I like the use of the term trade-off. It kind of compartmentalizes and separates what I would think about as a trade-off versus avoidance.
Yeah,
In that trade-off, you're exchanging whatever you were holding for something more positive, right?
yeah,
But that avoidance is you're still holding on to it and maybe having toxic behavior present itself or some type of undesirable behavior as a result of it versus exchanging it for something good and
right,
helpful.
right. For instance, as a child, if mom has emotional instability and is always flying off the handle and becomes dangerous when anger shows up, that child's unconscious system is likely to make trade-offs so that that child adopts some behavior that keeps it safer when mom becomes angry. And as an adult, that adult might think, I don't know why I'm avoiding anger all the time. They might not even think about the fact that anger like that mom had is not actually healthy or normal. But they might, that because when we grow up, we think this is how life is. And Steve Hoskinson will say, in the days before modern civilization, when we were a tribe, growing up, we were in the whole tribe. We were not just isolated with our family. So these adaptations that are automatically made would be healthy, likely, for the whole life of the person. But now we've become so isolated in our families and so connected throughout the world that we don't stay in the same tribe and the same emotional environment anymore. And so those trade-off exchanges that the unconscious system has been making for eons start tripping us up because life has changed, but our biologies don't shift that fast.
So, organic intelligence is helping us to gently, I guess I could use the word or the term overcome or move past the things that have caused us to need therapy in the first place, right?
Yeah,
But what a
I think I would rephrase it even
okay.
because it organic intelligence helps what's unconscious shift things around so new behavior wells up and we just start behaving differently. It's yeah,
Does
it's tough to think of how unconscious it all is.
okay, right. In doing this type of work or approach
Mhm.
to our healing, we also come to realize how much we have lost of ourselves or of our lives as a result of other types of approaches that we
Oh
have
yeah.
tried to navigate or just being alone amongst the things that we've dealt with up until now or feeling
Hmm.
unaffirmed or unseen in what has caused us to need to address things that
Right.
have occurred in our past. How do we include that type of loss in the healing that organic intelligence offers? Organic intelligence sounds to me like it's absolutely addressing our traumas in a way
Hmm.
that is very helpful and approachable and gentle.
Yeah.
What about how we have had to endure the aftermath of it, though, in terms of that time
Right.
of what you've spoken about before of, like losing a big chunk of your life
Yeah.
to navigating through this. Does
Right
organic
now,
intelligence help us move through that as well?
I don't know exactly how to approach that. I know for myself, I basically lost 30 years. And now with organic intelligence, it's as if things are opening up and shifting and becoming freer than even when I was a little child, a toddler.
Mhm.
So I might say, looking at myself and my state of being, how I'm able to operate, how I feel right now that I've lost my whole life. But I might also say, wow, look what I've gained. I feel like I really know who I am and what my purpose is, and I feel aligned with that, and I feel calm and peaceful and curious, and I begin to see, oh, look at that, and look at that, and look at that, and I can try these other things, and I was always stuck before. So yes, I've lost a lot, but and I don't know if this is just me or if it's organic intelligence, but I feel like I've gained so much that it's almost like, well, that's the past. I can't do anything about it. But look, I have all this now. I'm just going for it.
Hmm. So there's not a resentment anymore at this
I
point.
don't have any resentment anymore. And I think probably it would be safe to say that organic intelligence brings you to a place where the curiosity and the calmness and the idea of watching life and enjoying it flowing by and picking this and picking that and becomes more interesting than what came before. And it's like deciding. One of the things that can happen as you're going through your unconscious system, letting go of the addiction to what's wrong, is you start deciding, oh, I really would like friends who look at what's right. My friends are always talking about, oh, this and oh, that and oh, the other thing. And that stresses me out. Now I can see it stressing me out, and I want something different. So it's almost like a flower unfolding
Okay.
and saying, oh my goodness, look, I can see so much more, and I want this that's different. So I don't know that I really answered your question, but those are the sorts of things that I've experienced and I've been thinking about with that.
I think you did answer it. What I feel like I was getting at is the feelings that might remain after organic intelligence has helped us address the initial trauma. There's like that aftermath of, I wish it would have been different, or it could
Yeah,
have been something else had I, found this sooner, or didn't spend so much time in a different modality. But it sounds to me like, at least from your perspective, that this has been something that has kind of been all encompassing
yeah,
of how you have found yourself in the peaceful place you are now, and in an appreciative place of, again, like kind of getting back to what we talked about in the beginning. It's about looking for that good instead of continuously acknowledging the bad, or
right,
what wasn't, or what you wish was.
right. And I never even tried.
Mm-hmm.
It just started happening. And I think it probably will be true that people will go through a period of feeling regret and feeling loss. I mean, I went through that probably much of the time I was dealing with a complex illness. And I think I had probably just worked through a lot of that already when I learned about organic intelligence and started being a client and training. But the typical trajectory of people who stick with organic intelligence is to arrive at a place like I'm describing, calm, peaceful, watching what's good without having made any effort to do it. Because that seems to be our natural state when our unconscious systems are functioning at their most free level.
Right. Another point of the content that you shared with me that stuck out to me very much was, with genuine human connection, compassion, attunement, and skill to follow the intelligence of our nervous systems, we grow our capacity to naturally heal and self-organize.
Yeah,
Can you help us understand what that looks like in practice with a
sure.
client?
Actually, I can help you understand what it looked like with me. I just went through
Yeah.
something like that this past week.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm currently taking the next round of certification courses in organic intelligence, and we were learning about family systems and being encouraged to take this new information and relook at things that we've looked at. And I had already seen patterns between family and this happening and that happening and the other happening. And I started relooking, and I realized that the last boss that I had before I started therapy, before I started remembering, was probably a big part of why I started remembering. And I started thinking about that, and I brought it up in a practice session with other people in the class where we act as practitioner and client for a half hour with each other. And my practitioner in that half hour session pointed out to me that my decision to quit after almost a year and a half with that boss was a really good, healthy decision. But to me, it had always felt like failure because I was raised to make a decision and stick with it. And if you're good enough, you can manage. But I wasn't managing. I mean, from the very first day with that boss, I was profoundly dissociating, profoundly in a fog and having trouble thinking, but I didn't even really know what that was or why it was happening. And so I began to think about that. And I began to realize that there was integration going on within myself because my body, my unconscious had been learning that process, how to do it. And I was writing a note to my own organic intelligence practitioner, just describing, hey, I had this, really interesting sequence of events, and I think I'm healing even more. And I realized as I was writing, wow, there's more unconscious level integration going on. I could feel it within me. It was a sensation almost like the whole body relaxing after being really tense and afraid, and finally the danger's passed and your body's like, oh. And I thought, all right, I'm just going to I'm going to stay with this until it finishes. And I stopped writing the email. I closed the computer and just kind of sat quietly for like 15 minutes as I felt more and more and more waves of internal relaxation type sensations. Mm-hmm. And then when it was done and I started like, oh, okay, I think I'm back to normal. And it was all very pleasant. I just re-entered my normal day, and I've since felt different, sort of somehow more settled inside, as if that big piece that I hadn't really realized was so big kind of took everything and how it was organized and went, and it was like this inside, and my realizing that I could take the time to let it settle, and the training and the coach and the working with the practitioner that I've had to this date have allowed me to learn that I can let it settle. And it was like it just kind of all came back together in a different way that's more healthy, more integrated, more free somehow. And even as I'm talking about it now, I just feel the sensation in my chest, like, oh, I just feel so thankful and so like at peace that happened. And it wasn't something that I planned on. It's something that my unconscious system took advantage of from the teaching that brought things to mind, from my sharing with my practitioner in the practice session that we had, from what the practitioner said to me, from everything that happened. And
Would you say?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Would you say that a lot of what you experienced is a lot to do with finding and being aware of that just feeling within ourselves, or being more in tune to what we're feeling instead of just like dismissing it and moving about the day,
Definitely.
and just not paying any attention to it?
Right, definitely. No, I've as a client of an organic intelligence practitioner, I've been learning what it feels like to just pay attention and to notice those times of settling and to let them be. But it hasn't been something that I've made an effort to do. It's just been gentle suggestions occasionally. But also in the learning that I did as I was being certified and that I've continued doing since, there are these reminders of what's going on underneath all of that in the unconscious, and why it's important. And it just makes so much sense to me that I've begun to go, oh, okay, I really want to pay attention to those things, because when they're happening, they're significantly healing. So it's kind of a learning process. I don't think it's something that I could have done on my own, because even when I'm working with my practitioner like this, we're chatting along and he'll notice something and say it to me, and I'll be like, I have no idea what, he'll notice a physical thing that my unconscious body is doing. I haven't noticed it. Even though he's been saying a similar thing to me over many sessions, I never notice it. But my body's doing this thing that he's noticing, and occasionally we're working with it, and it's becoming more and more integrated. And it doesn't even matter what past memory or emotion or whatever is going on, because the unconscious knows what it is, and it's taking care of it little by little. I've just begun to see that there's so much more to the automatic parts of us. Many of the new things aren't entirely accepted by the scientific community at large until they've been around for a long time.
That's true. And I think a lot of that is because we as humans are, I feel like, wired to want things that are tangible and visible, and something that can be proven with our sight or with our other senses. But like we need to see it, so to speak, in front of us in some way to make it true and valid.
But
And
I
that's just not
almost,
the way of healing.
no, I almost think we count ourselves as having five senses in at least our Western culture. I almost think there's a sixth sense, which is the ability of all this water in our bodies to sense frequencies, which are words and thoughts and things coming in from outside. And I think that's a lot of where intuition comes from. I think it's the whole body automatic sensing, saying, oh, this isn't good for us. And the part of the unconscious that is the brain translating that into something that we can understand better.
I mean, even though we don't see it,
Right.
everybody feels that, whether you want to call it intuition or a knowing or your gut feeling or whatever you want to use to describe it, it isn't something that is seen or heard, or you can't smell it or taste it. You can't touch it, but there's
But practice
still,
proves it's real.
it's real and it's still there, and you still have this knowing of that awareness of whatever it is. So
Right.
the sixth sense, I feel like, is absolutely a real thing. It's
Well, and there are really obvious examples, like walking into a room and having all the hair on your arms stand up.
right.
Why? Something in you recognized that there was something dangerous.
Hmm. Right. And you can feel that even with the presence of a person, right? You might get a
Yes.
vibe, it might be called sometimes,
Hmm.
um,
You can feel
that this
their
is
anger, their,
right.
yeah,
A lot of people use the word empath for that. You're able to
right?
feel other people's emotions, so to speak, or sense that something isn't safe. And those are all things that I feel like absolutely you should listen to. And
Hmm.
a lot of times, just because of the way our society operates, is we're told not to trust ourselves. Don't listen to
Yeah,
yourself,
right.
you don't know what's best for you, type of thing.
That was the message I grew up with.
And if something is hard or uncomfortable, it just means that you're supposed to endure it and get through it, because that's going to make you stronger. And
Yep,
so much of that is just conditioning people, for one, to be abused,
right.
and also to become adults who don't know how to connect with themselves. They don't know how to trust themselves. They don't know how to seek safety or calmness within themselves. It's a constant looking outside of yourself for it,
Yeah.
which you're working to help people get back to that awareness, that
Right,
unconscious and conscious way of just knowing who you are and what you need.
right, right. Yeah, and I love that it's so organic. A session with organic intelligence is just like we're chatting here.
Mm-hmm.
The subtle interventions that the practitioner is making are most often not even apparent. They might just be, oh, something as subtle as that,
Mm-hmm.
or a tilt of the head, or because it's the unconscious body and mind that the practitioner is communicating with. And that part of us is always making sure to protect us, and it's not going to listen to anything that doesn't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
So everything the practitioner does is super subtle because the person's unconscious body and mind are deciding at every step, am I listening to that? No. Am I listening to that? Oh, how interesting. Maybe. So it's
Yeah.
it's super safe.
I think that's an important thing to share in the
Yeah.
context of this conversation, because healing can feel so out of reach for people or so intimidating to people. So to know that this particular way of navigating something hard doesn't have to feel hard, and it can
Right.
feel like a place of safety instead of vulnerability.
Yeah. And actually, it's never even required, if you're healing from trauma, for instance, that you talk about the trauma.
Mm.
If the client comes in and the best thing that can happen in the session is that they chat about whatever's top of mind. If that shifts around between subjects, that's fine. And usually what happens is that the unconscious of the person is shifting little openings within the train of thought. For instance, a person might share something about being, having trouble getting over an earthquake a long time ago. And then the same conversation might roll around to living near an airport and having the house shake every time the plane flies over, and what a kind of cool experience that is. But it's kind of an echo of the earthquake. And in the integration of the echo, the earthquake also gets integrated.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's super cool because there's never any direct work required with the trauma. It's just let's help the unconscious help the person because it knows what to do.
I know that you've mentioned some in this conversation about expanding on what you've been doing with your own certification, and the way that you're going to be helping other people find a similar path to what is releasing or healing for them. Tell us a little bit more about how that looks for you, how you
I
are going to be helping people.
I seem to be drawn in these past years to things that help without making an effort. So organic intelligence is one of those things, becoming a practitioner, but also the things that I've learned about the natural needs of the human body and mind that we've interrupted with moving indoors, that can be replaced with a few easy habit changes so that the person, their whole unconscious automatic system functions better, just because they add a couple things into their day. And I guess perhaps it was the long road that I needed to take to get here that has watered this desire in me to help people without them having to work at it. I did enough work. I don't want to put work on anybody else.
Mhm.
I'd rather find things that help without making an effort. Make an effort to go to the session, make an effort to change a small habit that doesn't seem to have anything to do with having more stress tolerance, or your emotions being calmer, or your hormones adjusting, or your intestinal problems getting better. Just make a small habit adjustment that has nothing to do with that, and your body does the rest because it's getting resources that it's always needed that we never really knew it was getting until these new understandings like circadian rhythm and the Japanese, I think it is, have a thing they call forest bathing, where they just walk among the trees. And the trees actually, every living thing has frequencies. Every cell has its own little vibrational frequency. When you're among the trees, the water in the body, your ears, your eyes, all senses, all 6 of them, are receiving the sounds of the forest, the cool breeze, the fog on your face, the frequencies of the trees. Our bodies know that from eons. They know it's safe. So it's like a gift for the body to go, oh, I'm safe. And every little bit of that happens, the unconscious works without that stress, so it has more energy to do what it needs to do. So it gets more of the backlog done. And when we do that naturally, we just work it into like our weekends or whatever, our systems start getting better, like a cut healing, except more profoundly, because we don't tend to talk about that sort of healing in our society. Our traditional medical system doesn't talk about the whole person just healing because the frequencies of the trees are good. That's kind of like considered pretty crazy. I used to consider it, all that stuff. But I also have a need to scientifically understand, and there's science behind all of this. It's like, oh, wow, look at that, it's connected, it's connected.
Right. And I think that we very much are told that we need to heal whatever it is first, and then you start leaning into the things of giving the rest of your body what it needs, whether it is that forest bathing or nutrition or movements, meditation, any of those things. Like those are the things that you do to get to the healing, I feel like.
Right, right.
Instead of in reverse, the things that we say like, oh, this kind of this happened to me because I, couldn't get past my trauma and I was just working so hard to overcome the thing that happened in my life and forgetting about the other parts that are necessary to even reach it. So if we just like flip that, I feel like,
Yeah, yeah. And actually, when we're working so hard to do something, we're using energy that our unconscious could be using to get its tasks done for us. So one of the things that Steve Hoskinson always says is that in organic intelligence, the job is enjoyment. Because when we're enjoying ourselves with non-addictive, healthy things, we're at our least, we're at the point where we're using our least amount of conscious resources. So our unconscious has the most amount that it can. And it can do all the things that it needs to do and have time left over to take care of things it couldn't do way back when, to heal this, to heal that. And that all happens. It's not like you start with organic intelligence and the practitioner says, okay, go enjoy yourself. No, it's you start with a chat and your own unconscious system starts unfolding and you find yourself looking for more enjoyable things because, oh, I don't know why that happened, but it's because your unconscious system is healing and you get the benefit.
yeah, it makes a lot of sense the way you just described that. Lisa, you've shared so much in the space of this podcast episode, and I thank you for that. What do you want our listeners to walk away thinking about today?
That there is hope and it can be easy. I think with organic intelligence, there can be healing from trauma, but there can also be boosted healing from illness because organic intelligence helps the whole automatic body and brain function better. So anything that we need is going to get better. I think it's a wonderful thing, foundational level to put under anything. I don't know how well it mixes with traditional therapy, but it probably could be that too. But just general overall function, healing from what seems like a totally dysregulated nervous system, healing from trauma. Your unconscious can do all that. And I keep saying body and mind because we often think our unconscious is all up here, but it's the whole body. And I think this is a way that it can happen just by chatting and not having homework and not having to stress about it. And I find that so very helpful.
Well, thank you for sharing this with us today and helping us look at hard things from a different angle and realize maybe they don't have to be quite so hard.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.